Hello everyone, welcome to X Chapter Channel. I'm doing a driving episode today because, let's be honest, doing a driving episode when you're locked up in quarantine makes a lot of sense. It's a chance to get out and see a little bit more than just the confines of my own room. Going to Costco today. And while I'm heading to Costco, I'm going to talk about a topic that I think has become near and dear to all of us, and that is social media. Because frankly, social media has become the one gateway to the world for many of us, trapped in our homes and being in lockdown. But to be honest, that's something I feel like I can already relate to. And that is because social media has long been a gateway to the world for those of us who've chosen to live long-term in a foreign country. It's an access to English media and the daily life of people we know living either in the States or living in foreign countries like us and communicating about our experiences in English. So, let's talk about that today. I'm going to talk about this basically from two different angles. One, how social media has been such an important part for people who are living abroad, and how Japanese users of social media use it a little bit differently than users in other countries might. So I'm going to begin with the beginning for me, which was 2002. I came to Japan, and this is before Facebook, this is before Instagram. In those days, your primary contact with other people was message boards. Yeah, MySpace existed, but I never had a MySpace page, and I don't even know that I know anyone who did. So message boards were the thing. Most of these message boards saw people like me posting on them. Long-term residents or short-term residents looking for advice about living in Japan. Some of them are still out there, like Gaijin Pod is still a website, although they closed their message board a few years ago. I Think I'm Lost, which was geared towards people getting information about being an assistant language teacher in Japanese schools, which is what I was at that time. But I spent the most time on a message board that was full of nefarious trolls and ne'er-do-wells, people blowing off steam at lunch, in their lunchrooms at their schools. And I am of course talking about Big Daikon. If you know Big Daikon, you know what I'm talking about. It was vastly entertaining, it was rude and crass, and yeah, it was a lot of great stress relief and a chance to speak in English with other people who were going through basically the same thing you were going through in various forms in different parts of Japan. So message boards were the thing. And for Japanese people at this time, it was message boards as well. Sites like Mixi were very, very popular. And for the Japanese, Mixi remained quite popular for some time, and Facebook, when it finally came around, actually had difficulty making inroads in the Japanese market because Japanese, by and large, are much more private about their online posting. Even on Facebook now, most of my Facebook friends post without their real picture as their profile, and some even go so far as to censor faces of people in their photos because they think maybe they don't want to be represented on social media. So by and large, Mixi remained popular for a long time because you could post under a user handle and you didn't have to use any identifying information, certainly not a photo of yourself. Now Facebook, for me, and I think for a lot of other long-term residents in Japan, is like what I said in my intro, a lifeline, a vision, a way out of Japan to stay connected with the outside world, to stay connected with not just American news or European news, but a way to stay connected with people and daily life of what's going on in the United States or wherever. I have to be frank, and my family and friends will back me up on this. I'm a terrible correspondent when it comes to email and letters. I'm not very good at keeping up that sort of thing. So Facebook was a godsend for me because it allowed me to keep in touch with a lot of people that I probably otherwise would not have kept in touch with. Because it's become so important for me, and I know many other long-termers, when I see a friend in America say something like, oh, I don't like Facebook's platform, or I don't like the political views I'm seeing, or I just can't be seen to waste time on this anymore, I'm leaving Facebook forever. I always think to myself, okay, more power to you, but that's not something I could ever see myself doing, because I would just be closing myself off to so much of the contact that I hold near and dear. And yeah, I do have a little bit of a Facebook addiction. I won't dissuade you from believing that fact, it's true. Now, if it's not Facebook for long-termers in Japan, it's Instagram. I do know a lot of people who don't do much Facebook, but they are heavily onto Instagram instead, because they're more into the sharing of their photography and videos and that sort of thing. But still, it's acting as a window for them to share their work and see others. And I will admit that's one of the other alluring things about using Instagram and Facebook, is by living in Japan, you get to show people your life in Japan back in your hometown and wherever your friends may be across the United States or elsewhere. So that means that, you know, just the temple that I see every day on the way to work is something that people ooh and ah about when I post it on Facebook. So yeah, addicted to likes just as much as anyone else. So Instagram is wildly popular amongst Japanese as well, but like Facebook, it tends to be with that extra edge of privacy kept. So there's something in Japan called Insta-buy spots, which are the famous places or restaurants or dishes or whatever it might be that people want to collect. And it's called Insta-buy because it's taking the word Insta from Instagram and buy from baeru or hairu, which means to be beauty or become beauty. So Insta-buy spots are popular to seek out in Japan. But even when people take photos of those Insta-buy spots and share them on Instagram, it tends to be just the scenery of the spot or the scene of the plate of food that they're eating or whatever it is. You still don't see people in the photos. And of course there's exceptions to this rule, but by and large, Japan is not a selfie country. They're not really into selfies, despite the fact that other Asian countries, like friends I have from China and the Philippines, they love taking selfies. Japan, not so much. Twitter, also very popular in Japan. Lots of Japanese Twitter accounts, but again, used a little bit differently. Japanese users apparently often have a lot of different accounts, and they're each tied to a particular hobby. So if you're into Japanese idols, for example, you have an account where you tie into other accounts and follow accounts that have to do with idols. And then you have a separate account that you make because you're really into the NBA and you're following people for that. So that, combined with the fact that Japan isn't big on political discussion. People don't have political discussion with their friends and neighbors very much in Japan, which means that the political discussions are not going on Twitter either, which is a huge difference from the States. And that's kind of refreshing, right? The dumpster fire that is Twitter in America is less so in Japan, so I guess that's a plus. TikTok is different in Japan a little bit as well. Like elsewhere, it seems to be primarily popular with younger Japanese as opposed to older users. But the difference in Japan is it tends to be a group effort. You see a lot of school kids putting content on TikTok, and it's groups rather than an individual. So I think in general, Japan TikTok users are too shy to just do TikTok on their own and feel better about using it as a part of a group. Now, I wouldn't be talking about social media properly in Japan if I didn't bring up the elephant in the room, and that is Line. How best to describe the messaging giant Line? Well, If you come to Japan and you live here, you're going to probably have to get Line to communicate with friends and co-workers and anyone else. I use it for groups in my classes, and quite honestly, it's a very convenient application. Part of its popularity from the beginning was it provided a lot of stamps, or basically elaborate emoticons that you could use in your messaging to other people. And the variety was huge, and it's gotten bigger and bigger over the years. You can find pretty much anything on there. If you want Doraemon stamps, they've got it. If you want your favorite anime stamps, they're probably on there. Television personalities, you name it, it's likely there. There's lots of free stamps you can download that are made by companies. Aside from the official ones, they also made a platform for creators to create their own stamps and sell to Line users. So if you wanted to make a set of stamps and put them onto the stamp marketplace, you could do that, and people could buy your stamps, and that was another reason the popularity was driven. To understand Line is to understand it has grown well beyond that of a messaging app. It provides all kinds of different possibilities. There's banking, there's insurance, you can find a part-time job through Line, or if you're an employer, you could look to find employees. So basically, it's become a one-stop shop for many of things that you can accomplish online in today's society. Now, I personally don't use it for anything other than messaging. I don't use all of those other functions, but if you live in Japan, it might be worth looking into. It seems to be wildly popular, and a lot of people use those other functions beyond just the messaging. So, what do you think? What social messaging applications or platforms do you use? Let me know which ones you use and how you use them in the comments below. So if you have any other insights into social networking systems in Japan, please comment below as well. I love it when people get in on the conversation. Thank you very much for watching this one. I hope it was interesting and informative, and I hope to see you on the next one. I drop new content every Friday, so hit the subscribe button, like the videos that you like, and I will see you next week.